our next speaker is Karen Kiesler, and you might hear some background noise. Karen's sitting at the airport, so turn your speakers up loud so that you can hear her. She's going to do her best. She's moved to the quietest place that she could find in the airport, so please bear with her. We want to get this information that she has to share. It's so critical, so important. So Karen is coming in and she'll be speaking with us about the Master Plan for Aging and IHSS goals and objectives. We just heard from our morning speaker, from Tiffany, the challenges that we're having, not just in our North State, but throughout the nation regarding IHSS issues. So Karen is the executive director of the California Association of Public Authorities for IHSS, or CAPA. Now, she has extensive expertise in health and human services and public sector financing. She's worked for more than 40 years with state and local government agencies, public employee unions, and nonprofit associations. So among her many accolades includes the formation of enhanced IHSS provider wages and legislation that also improve consumer participation in the IHSS program, with the mandate for each county in our state to establish an IHSS advisory committee with the majority representation coming from the consumers. So Karen, please come on in. Don't be shy. Don't worry about the airport noise. We get it. We are just so grateful to have you with us today. Everyone knows it's Father's Day weekend, so good on you for getting out there and going to see Dad. So come right on in, Karen.
Thank you so much. I hope that you can hear me. Maybe a thumbs up from people if they can,
we
can hear me.
We can absolutely hear you. Yes.
That's so good. Okay. Well, next slide, I'm going to talk about the IHSS components of the Master Plan on Aging. There was a lot of time spent on in-home supportive services issues. The State Department of Social Services did 5 different listening sessions around the state with a lot of participation. There was the Long-Term Services and Support Subcommittee of the Master Plan, of which I'm honored to have been a member. We had a number of sessions on IHSS. There was also then a subcommittee of the subcommittee that worked on IHSS issues, and then all of that fed up to the State Advisory Committee and their report to the governor, and finally some really good recommendations for changes in the IHSS arena. So there are basically 4 major IHSS initiatives in the governor's Master Plan on Aging. There are a lot of other things that touch on IHSS that deal with coordination and integration of service and a lot of other things. But I'm going to jump right into that. There's these 4. So the first is dealing with registries and backup services. The second is dealing with provider training and career ladders. Third is models of care with a focus on dementia. And the last is the IHSS plus housing models. So if you could move to the next slide. On IHSS registries and backup services, we at the California Association of Public Authorities have lead responsibilities for running registries in each county, and then the governor created the mandate last year for COVID to also have emergency backup services to provide backup providers to consumers when there was a COVID situation. The consumer was positive and the provider wouldn't work there, or vice versa. We know that there's been a real challenge with consumers needing to get a provider right away, and then they could get a list from their public authority of registry providers. They call, the phone numbers have been changed, or providers have maxed out their hours. They can't work more due to the overtime limits. So we know that there are challenges within the registry and backup services systems, and we were really pleased that the governor's master plan said that we need to explore opportunities to increase the stability for IHSS consumers by improving registry and backup services. So there are actually 3 things that are going on right now to address this Initiative 39 in the governor's master plan. The first is that the governor's budget is proposing to establish a permanent emergency backup system in every single county. The counties and public authorities would be working together on that. There's funding in the budget that could allow counties and public authorities to contract with agencies to provide a differential wage for emergency backup workers under our individual provider system. We sponsored language statutes that would say that there needs to be real specificity about how the emergency backup systems would be run. The State Department of Social Services has said that the criteria to get a permanent for this emergency backup system is that the consumer has a health and safety risk because their provider is not available. But we don't know whether that means that there has to be a call into 911 with an ambulance at the door, or if we get a call from a consumer saying my provider is going to be quitting in a couple of days and I don't have another provider, and so my crisis is in a couple of days. We need to know really what kind of parameters there are going to be for this program. So there will be a stakeholder process to figure that out. We're hoping that then there'll be a statute passed still this year that would allow implementation before January of next year. In the meanwhile, we're still running the COVID backup systems. There's also an initiative in the governor's home and community-based spending plan that includes funds to enhance public authority registries. And then finally, we've been engaged in a multi-month process to evaluate the registries and to figure out how we can get to more uniformity and improving those services. I could spend a lot of time talking about that, but it is a high priority for us to have to improve registry and backup services. So next slide. The next area is dealing with provider training and career ladders. It's long been a desire of consumers and providers, consumer groups, unions, and so forth to have a lot more training that is available. And unfortunately, there were big cuts to IHSS a number of years ago, and the training was the victim of that. So the governor's initiative is to consider expanding online training platforms, including opportunities for dementia training, and to try to plot out more career ladders. So very exciting. The governor's budget includes $200 million to incentivize, support, and fund career pathways. That includes very heavy training component in the $200 million. The second is in his home and community-based spending plan that also includes $150 million for specialized training. So the first pot, the $200 million, is more general kind of training. The $150 would be more specifically around dementia training, or could be paramedical, or it could be other things. The state's proposal is again to have a stakeholder group with consumers, with providers, with public authorities, counties, and so forth that would develop the curriculum and the standards for those programs. So we're excited about that. The third initiative, dealing with models of care, if you could advance the slide. So if you could advance the slide. The third thing, dealing with models of care, the desire here from health plans and other organizations is to see if we can find more ways to have IHSS work within the scheme of healthcare without losing our socially based model program. So there's two things that are going on here. One is it's really under one. The Department of Healthcare Services has been working on a huge set of reforms for Medi-Cal. The proposal that they're working on is called CALING, California Advancing and Innovating Medi-Cal. And two important components of that are in lieu of services, so that a health plan could pay for more home care than a county authorizes for IHSS. They could provide for home modifications, so you could get grab bars or other kinds of things. There's a whole slew of things in the in lieu of services list. And then also enhanced case management, and there certainly is a goal that we share with other organizations to make sure that IHSS providers and family members are part of enhanced case management and part of care coordination. And this proposal specifically does aim at care planning around cognitive impairment, traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia. So that's the third of 4 initiatives. The next one, which is IHSS plus housing, if you could advance the slide. There's been a challenge for people, seniors and people with disabilities who are unsheltered or otherwise known as homeless in getting IHSS. And it used to be that the state told the counties, you cannot approve IHSS services to homeless individuals. And they said the statute requires that you be living safely in your home in order to receive IHSS. And they said that living under a bridge or alongside a river or in a park or in your car was not considered living safe. So the state used to say, no, we cannot approve in-home supportive services to people who are homeless. That is being resolved, and the state has had a more favorable view to the authorization of services. But there are a lot of challenges still for people who are homeless to get the kind of supports that they need from IHSS and from other programs. So that's broadly the goal that is expressed here in this 4th initiative. And there's literally hundreds of millions of dollars that are being put forward in our state budget for residential care facilities, for improving and targeting services to the homeless, and the consideration of how to integrate IHSS into those initiatives is a high priority as well. So I think I have covered in 12 minutes the 4 major initiatives, and you had asked that I do this and tried to leave 5 minutes for questions. So I'm happy to take any if there's any in the chat, or I'm not sure how you would feed questions.
Yes, in fact, before you came in, we had a thought earlier this morning before you had come in, and it was coming from Tatiana. Let me see if I can get back up to it here, scrolling through the chat. And thank you for that very thorough overview. We greatly appreciate it. So I'm sketching through the chats, and Tatiana, if you are still on with us, I want to make sure I'm addressing, it was specific to IHSS, so I'm scrolling back up through the morning chats to find that as quickly as I can. Let's see here. Bear with me just one moment, if you would, please, Karen.
Sure.
Well, I'm looking for it, Tatiana, and if you are still on, please feel free to jump back in because I'm going through a big long chat. Housing, dual integration, home and heart. We had a very busy morning. See if I can find it. I think I'm getting closer. Hi, Cap, Medi-Cal. Ah, here we go. I found it, Karen. So
okay.
This is coming from Tatiana, and Tatiana wanted to know specifically in regards to IHSS. Oh, darn, I thought I had found it. That was my response to Tatiana, which means, and I told her, wait for Karen. Let me go up a little bit higher. I know I'll find it. It's actually quieter than we thought it was going to be with the airport, so you're doing fine.
It's amazing. There were 2 flights that boarded and it got quieter. It had been really just crazy.
Tatiana. Oh, thank you. Tatiana resent. Unmute. Hear what we're getting. Can you unmute Tatiana and we can just have her ask her question directly, please, Will? Oh, so we can't, yeah, if you could allow her to just ask her question directly, please.
Okay. All right, great. Yes.
Thank
no,
you,
it wasn't
Tatiana.
specifically. Can you hear me now?
We sure can.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah. Hi, yes. It wasn't specifically to IHSS, even though IHSS is part of the CalDual's integration. And that was the particular area because IHSS is ultimately going to be part of the mandatory managed care for duals. And so I just sent you in the chat the timeline link, or the link to the timeline, so that the audience can see the changes that are planned between now and 2027.
Perfect.
So it's going to be, and since I am on the CalDual Stakeholder Committee, I've got to make sure that everybody knows that big changes are happening.
Right, right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Tatiana. And so obviously, in listening to what you were sharing, Karen, there's a lot of things that are still on a timeline, inclusive of the service to individuals that are living in shelters that do not have stable housing and still having access to services when they require them. So we greatly appreciate that overview. We know you're at the airport. Go ahead and wrap up. We know you're at the airport, so feel free to just wrap up.
Well, I just wanted to say that some organizations, including mine, feel very passionately that IHSS should be coordinated with managed care and with the duals integration, but it should not be integrated. In other words, we do not want to see managed care organizations responsible for IHSS.
Yes.
They have typically expressed that they don't want to be the employer of over 500,000 IHSS workers. We don't want the money to flow through them. We don't want them to make the decisions on assessments. We don't want them to hire, fire, supervise. We want to preserve the social model that is really the model for the nation in terms of consumer-directed care.
Yes, and that really does speak to what you just voiced. I mean, it's about the individual being able to have some choice in their care process. That it's so important that we value that, and that really is the spirit behind the measures coming through with the master plan for aging. That has to remain a part of it.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much,
to my dying breath, I will fight for consumers having the right to hire, fire, and supervise their workers.
And there's one more question coming through, Karen, if you do have time for it. It's coming from Rosa, and Rosa is asking, can you give an idea about the services for homeless who are living under the bridge and what that looks like? And Rosa, I want to say that we have a very good next portion coming up as well that's going to touch on some of these elements. But anything you would like to share and just wrapping up with that thought, Karen?
Well, I would say that the state used to say that the counties could not approve in-home supportive services to people who are homeless. They no longer are giving that direction, and that's been really, really, it's difficult for the homeless to find an IHSS provider. It's difficult for the homeless, period, in their whole life experience. And so it's good that we've made progress with this administration, that counties now are able to provide, to authorize IHSS to people who are homeless. And that's really a great move forward.
That is a great to hear, because it is still a huge challenge in our northern counties, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Barbara. It's good to know that we're moving in a direction that really is going to be helpful out here.
Well, I'm so pleased to have been able to join you. I am right, I know it, you're right at 12:20, yep, which was your schedule.
You're good to go. My goodness, thank you so much for coming in from the airport. We greatly appreciate it. Travel safe and just love on your dad.
Thanks so much.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.